Yo, welcome everybody back into Crypto's News. It is me, Omar Bam, your host. Always excited to go ahead and put together a nice crypto journey, go through it, and see what is the most interesting information that could benefit you guys so you can stay on top of what is going on in this rapidly growing and evolving and just beautifully diverse space. So thank you so much for joining me, for the support early on as we relaunched the show. I've been having some personal issues, as some of you guys may know, especially in regards to some of the withdrawals that I had to go through. And man, they have not been fun. I will tell you that I went, for example, 3 nights on about 3 hours of sleep. It was not very healthy and resulted in me having to take Ambien yesterday, something I've never wanted to take. I don't want to switch one medication for another. In fact, I prefer to be completely clean, but just because I wasn't sleeping, I decided to take it so that I could go ahead and put out a video for you guys. I've still continued to track this space, and I want to make sure that you guys know what's going on. So the first step was having to take care of my own health. Thank you so much for the patience while I get that together. I really just want to be in a proper headspace. Feel a little bit foggy, but I think we can go ahead and get through all this. So thank you guys. And just letting you know kind of what's going on with me. But I know everyone is facing difficult times. There's a lot going on, a lot of moving pieces around the world. So know that I'm here with you, like I always say, and you have a great community, a great family that we've built up here, and we'll continue to build up. So thank you so much for sharing the videos. And for those of you who subscribed, we're already over 700 subscribers, even though I haven't uploaded since last Thursday. I would like to be a lot more consistent with you guys. So thank you again for that. Let's go ahead and dive into things. Oh, hey to everyone who's joining us. I did want to get the chat up in a moment when I switch to the browser mode. Let me see if I can get the chat up on the screen real quickly. Paste. Is that going to work? Paste. There we go. That should make things somewhat more fun. Now you'll be forever kept in the videos. So hey, nice to see you, Evan. Hey, I'm glad you're keeping up the Weekend Ethereum newsletter. Lots going on with Ethereum as well. We're going to be covering that as we go along. What's up, Gabriel, Dreamcatchers, Renee? Guess who's back? Guess who's back? So yeah, what's going on with the prices? We got Ethereum down 4.2%. We'll start with Ethereum. Why not? We have it at $1,116.94. So still relatively flat. We are waiting for some sort of resolution. There are those who've been, oh no, I bought at the wrong time. We just got a pump over the last week, a pump or weekend. But really it was a big nothing burger. We have a lot of resolutions that have to happen technically. Really, I think the general consensus is that we're going to be facing a lot more downside perhaps for both Bitcoin, Ethereum, and the altcoin space. I would tread cautiously because the Fed has said and continues to say, even today, doubling down, that they really don't understand the nature of inflation, but it's their number one thing. And today we did find out that they don't even care that much of a recession happens. The so-called soft landing, where they can raise rates and avoid a recession, just seems like an impossibility, but at least they're admitting that. So just be very wary if you are trying to scalp these things and trade. It's always dangerous, especially if you're doing it on leverage. And like, I mean, it's true. Those who weren't messing around with weird yield generating things and with leverage were some of the ones who've survived the best through the crash so far. But see, again, some of these are some of the best opportunities to be dollar cost averaging on the way down. We'll get into Michael Saylor's dollar cost averaging in just a moment. But overall, yeah, market cap's down 1.3%, still under $1 trillion, which I think is an absolute bargain if you're going to be buying over the longer term and you're not trying to just pick the exact bottom or something like that. Let's see what's going on the last 24 hours. Terra Classic USD is one of the big performers right now. From my understanding, people are flooding into the original Terra chain. But Anonymous actually came out and had done a video about 3 days ago. The Anonymous group, which surprisingly only has 295,000 subscribers. You think that they would have more on YouTube? But yeah, they're an old hacker group and they really fight for, I guess, populism for the entire world with their activities. But they have a YouTube channel and they decided now that they're going to be focusing on the founder of Terra Luna, which had depegged from the US dollar, stable coin, and just causing all sorts of issues across the whole entire space. So there's a video that they produced. Check it out.
Kwon made a name for himself with his arrogant tactics, trolling competitors, critics, and acting like he would never fail. In fact, he said that he found it entertaining to watch other projects fail.
I wonder how many of these companies you think are entering the space just because it's hot and there's a lot of funding versus the ones that will still be here, you know, like 2 to 5 years later.
Oh, 95% are going to die.
Yeah.
95% are going to die. Yeah. Yeah, there's also entertainment in watching companies die too.
There's entertainment. Oh man, that's so evil. At least you get to learn from it, right?
On one occasion he called a journalist poor for asking him difficult questions. However, he was quickly knocked down by the markets. The louder they are, the harder they tend to fall.
Yeah, so they've set their sights now saying that they do want to see justice come to him, especially, I guess, for his megalomania, his lying, and apparently he was previously a scammer who went under a different name from Rick and Morty. Rick Sanchez, he was involved with some other stable coin in the past. I had no idea about that. And a lot of people had lost money in that. So they don't want to see that continue to happen. We just wanted to let you guys know what's going on with that. Either way, we did get a nice pump with Terra Classic USD today because sometimes traders do not care or do not know about their reputations. Not that he's involved with that in any sort of sense. So when I'm looking at the longer term here for Bitcoin, I put up here the moving averages. I got the 50-day moving average and I got the 200-day moving average up on these lines for you as I've done in the past. In the red, we have the 50-day, which is a shorter term or more medium term moving average. And we have in the blue, the 200-day moving average, which is more longer term. And it gives us a sign using the averages of the prices over charting it over time as to what the general direction is. And we get occasionally these death crosses or golden crosses that can happen. The golden cross is something that's quite bullish, and that's when you get the 50-day crossing over the 200-day moving average. As you can see, we have the opposite of that right now. We had the blue line here, so we had the 200-day moving average the 50-day moving average in the red, dropping below the 200-day moving average and sending us into this bearish territory. We haven't been able to reclaim above that. So a sign that we really haven't changed or seem to have any sort of change to the bullish upside just yet. Again, there's always good and bad, the yin and yang. This just means eventually you'll be able to get a stake that you might have missed out as we continue to retread to earlier price levels. This is really good for somebody who wants to get exposure and has some sort of income to be able to buy in, of course. But yeah, it doesn't look like it's about to change anytime soon. And based again on just the language that we're getting from the Federal Reserve, we have to wait and see. Although I'm hearing from more folks, at least some of the alt folks, that it could be happening where we have a switch from the Fed sooner rather than later where they decide to start pumping liquidity because they do in fact break things. We are seeing that real estate is it's dropping already, just prices just not at the level that they were before. So this could be the beginning of something else. I think that's a huge part of the wealth effect is real estate. At the same time as people begin to realize they might not be able to sell their homes for the prices that they were before, they feel poorer, they spend less money, and I think that could bring down inflation levels. But we do have to wait and see. Ultimately, cryptos are something unparalleled to them. And that's why you want to be holding those as a hedge from the rest of your portfolio. There's something just keeping you well diversified in this entire game. Although I think we could see some interesting moves as well in precious metals. There are those, we're seeing that commodities could be some of the big winners here. And so I think gold and silver could play a role in those. I think they were up on the day, although the stock market as well finished flat for the most part. If you're into Cardano, they added mobile support today. I'm not personally, but I know other folks are who've watched the show. So yeah, the 4.0.0 version of the Cardano app is now available to download in Ledger Live, and it's compatible with smart contracts for those with the big brains, apparently, according to the emoji there. Cardano DeFi plus Ledger equals good times. And that will be coming with full functionality because Phil Taylor here on Twitter did say, thanks, Ledger. Awesome to see. And Ledger, if you don't know, is probably the most popular, the best of the hardware wallets. There are those who use Trezor, but I've personally been a Ledger fan for the years. Continued support for more and more coins, as you can see here, Cardano as well. Thanks, Ledger. Awesome to see a Cardano update from my favorite hardware wallet. I look forward to a full Ledger Live support in the near future, and Ledger did respond. Glad you liked the update, and yes, Ledger Live support for Cardano is on the works. So some good news for you Cardano fans out there. We did see a huge climb in Ethereum fees today. I mean, you can still see it there on CoinGecko. Right before I had refreshed, it was up to 240 Gwei, which is quite high. And right now it was at 153 when I last looked at this. Now it's 121, so maybe it's dropping. But this is related to Arbitrum. So Arbitrum is a layer 2 sidechain, I guess you could call it, for Ethereum. Not truly decentralized, but I hear they do hope to become decentralized in the future as upgrades come along. But they have been having this Odyssey event where they have been rewarding. They actually had to pause this event, but they have been rewarding those who use the ecosystem, the sidechain, with exclusive NFTs, or will be doing that. And expectations, they might be even doing some sort of airdrop in the future to NFT holders, has meant that people have been using this chain quite a bit during this Odyssey multi-week reward program. But this resulted in a situation where you had fees on Arbitrum climbing even higher than you saw on the original Ethereum chain. I saw somewhere where it was up to $10 for some sort of swap that was happening. And eventually, after the pause of these rewards, that did come down, and fees have returned more or less to normal. But I think fees are still quite high when I'm looking at them right now. But this uses optimistic rollups. It's one of the targets now for how Ethereum hopes to be scaling in the future, is really focusing on things like this. There are other layer 2s that exist for Ethereum as well, where you can bundle a bunch of transactions, for example, on some sort of side chain before you push hundreds of transactions or more, bundle them together and use algorithms to result in lower fees for everyone and process those hopefully transactions in a decentralized way using zero knowledge proofs or other kinds of technologies, financial technologies, to lower fees and perhaps even make things quicker in the future. At least on a transactions per second basis, if that's how you're calculating it. But as you can see here, the lowest fees I'm looking at are on Metis Network. I'm not very familiar with the Metis Network and what it is, but you can see Arbitrum is at 53 cents to swap tokens. So that's pretty cheap when you're looking at an average price on Ethereum of $24.69. So you can see why there might be some excitement to use Arbitrum 1. But you have to be aware that the sequencer, which is the centralized pusher of transactions, you could call it, for Arbitrum 1, has gone down in the past. So if you are using Arbitrum, like I understand some people are using something called GXM or GMX in order to go short on Ethereum or go long on Ethereum, and they're using Arbitrum for other reasons as well, those swaps, that you could have funds stuck in this kind of sidechain if the sequencer was to go down again. So just be careful if you are messing around with that. Preferably, we'll get something more decentralized soon. So also, MicroStrategy has been doubling down. There's Bitcoin Bull, the Bitcoin Bull, Michael Saylor, who is proving reckless according to some analysts by continuing to double down. But at least he's continued his mission of adding to his company MicroStrategy, which is a business intelligence company. They basically sell business intelligence products and research to other companies, but they have been the number one buyer of Bitcoins and adding them to a corporate balance sheet. In second place, we have Tesla. Tesla is second biggest. They currently have about $862 million worth of Bitcoin, or not a small amount there, 42,902 Bitcoin. I prefer to look at the Bitcoin number rather than the dollar price, but I understand while we're still in this system why we have to look at the dollar price. But anyway, MicroStrategy now holds 130,000 Bitcoin, or $2.61 billion about at current prices, which it acquired for about $4 billion on average, because they've been buying since $60,000 Bitcoin. They actually were buying a lot more at $60,000 Bitcoin, as you can see. They bought 7,000 Bitcoin last October and November, while Bitcoin was around 60,000 bucks. That's quite insane. They actually bought a lot less today. They only bought 480 Bitcoin for about $10 million in cash, but at least they're still buying. And this is according to a filing, yes, with the SEC that they did put up. But yeah, they continue to buy even as the prices have gone down. There have been calls for their liquidation, and just talking about how nasty they're underwater. For example, they're about 35% in the red in the Bitcoin purchases to date. If you take the averages of all their buys being at $4 billion on average versus today's price at 2 point whatever billion, 2.4 billion, they're down about 35%. So not looking very good. And you can see why stockholders might be concerned. So you have all the analysts saying things like the rapid appreciation before last year's record high and latest demise shows MicroStrategy has failed to capitalize on the way up and to find protection when things got ugly. This sounds like almost like a football commentary. Investors looking for crypto exposure should not consider MicroStrategy a good vehicle for that, as they have proven to be reckless with their portfolio management. We hear to some degree, I agree with the viewpoint. It feels like a bit of a gamble, though, as prices haven't stabilized. That's true. We haven't seen Bitcoin's price stabilize, yet they continue to buy to give you confidence that a low is in just yet. I hope that doesn't scare investors who are holding the company's stock. And yeah, this follows the latest purchase after, was it Monday? So 2 days ago, in an interview, the SEC chair, Gary Gensler, did say that the only one he feels confident in saying, the only cryptocurrency he feels confident in saying is a commodity is Bitcoin and not a security. So quite a change from hearing in the past that Ethereum as well is in line with that. And Gary Gensler is famous for having taught a course at MIT, which you can actually check out online on blockchain before he went on to move to the SEC. So many thought he was going to be very friendly in how he regulated when he was the head of the Securities and Exchange Commission toward crypto, but he hasn't exactly been the first to allow for some sort of ETF or really get behind cryptos in a sort of major way. Moving on. Oh yeah, the crypto dog. I thought this was pretty funny. He had this to say on Twitter in regards to Michael Saylor continuing to buy. Honestly, though, mad respect to Saylor for checking all the cushions to rub a few shekels together and get some 20K Bitcoin. Yeah, buying that cheaper Bitcoin. Maybe not as much as he bought at 60,000 bucks, but you gotta admit their chest of money and funding is probably a lot lower, especially as people just don't want to buy things when they're cheaper. It looks scarier. So some of the people that are in the headlines right now to keep you informed, Roger Ver. Oh, look, Plus DT was talking about him actually here in the chat. So recently, some rumors have been spreading that I have defaulted, he said yesterday, on a debt to a counterparty. These rumors are false. Not only do I not have a debt to this counterparty, but this counterparty owes me a substantial sum of money, and I am currently seeking the return of my funds. So Roger Ver was an early Bitcoin evangelist and investor, maybe one of the first investing in businesses, and he is just a very controversial figure in the space, really gotten behind Bitcoin Cash and promoting that in islands where he lives, and just, he's been on my show before in the past. He's been a kind figure to me, of course, not the same kind of reputation which he has with everyone. But it looks like he may be owing some funds, and this has been perhaps confirmed by the company that he was talking about in regards to these rumors. As a CEO of CoinFlex.com, Mark Lamb, he is setting his sights now on Roger Ver publicly, trying to get this settled on Twitter. That's where all the action happens now. I'm not lying. Roger Ver owes CoinFlex $47 million in USDC. We have a written contract with him obligating him to personally guarantee any negative equity on his CoinFlex account and top up margin regularly. So they're saying that they do in fact have a contract. So that would assume that would be signed by Roger Ver, and that does mean that he should be paying them. He has been in default of this agreement, and we have served a notice of default. He had a long track record of previously topping up margin and meeting margin requirements in accordance with his agreement. We have been speaking to him on calls frequently about the situation with the aim of resolving it. We still would like to resolve it. From my understanding, this contract also didn't require any sort of collateral, which is interesting. So it's an under-collateralized loan that was given to Roger Ver, where he didn't really have to put up any Bitcoin or any assets at all. Kind of an interesting handshake agreement there. But anyway, let me continue what Mark Lamb had to say. He is denying that the debt pertains to him, as you saw in the previous tweet. And so we felt the need to clarify to the public that yes, the debt is 100% related to his account. Roger Ver, a citizen of the European Union who we believe has significant assets in the US, UK, and other relevant jurisdictions. CoinFlex also categorically denies that we have any debts owing to him. His statement is blatantly false. It is unfortunate that Roger Ver needs to resort to such tactics in order to deflect from his liabilities and responsibilities. So if this is all true, it is kind of damning. You shouldn't have to lie if you do owe funds. Hopefully we'll get some clarification on this. It's just funny. This is almost some sort of private matter between obviously a company and Roger Ver. But even individuals sometimes have issues, which is why you have to usually have some sort of collateral. But hey, it's Roger Ver. CoinFlex has gotten behind Bitcoin Cash as well. So it was just kind of keeping in the family, I suppose. The Bitcoin Cash family is how this kind of worked out. But anyway, hopefully this is a matter that is resolved for both parties in a good way. And just a lot of Twitter drama surrounding it. Want to make sure that you're informed. So that's what's going on with Roger Ver. There is some other drama I'm not really covering in the show related to USDC. There was a Twitter post that has no references, which is really why I'm not putting it up. It doesn't have any sort of proof from any other side, but it's saying to be very careful because USDC has been doing funny business and owes a lot of money. And so the stable coin that might be the most trusted, which is headed up by Circle, a company, might not be as trustworthy as others are seeing it and could result in people losing or having funds being locked up. Now, I'm not going to say whether that's true or not. Again, haven't seen any sort of references. Either way, I would like to see more information come out in regards to that. Maybe some more has come out since I was researching that this morning, that you guys can chime in on USDC, because if you are holding USDC, that should be worrisome. And if you're holding DAI, which is 51% backed by USDC, I'm hearing, then that should worry you as well, because now you have this centralized stablecoin that is serving as collateral for a decentralized stablecoin. That is why I had personally said I was going to be moving away from Maker back, I don't know, it could be months, it could be years in crypto time, but I'm pretty sure it was less than a year ago, months ago, when they did start allowing for USDC to serve as collateral for DAI. So that could be something that could be an issue for DAI, but maybe not a completely show-stopping issue for DAI as much as it could be for USDC if they were to have some sort of major issue. But it's like the arrows are out for everyone. They're trying to target everyone. And so it could be a lot of nonsense what we're hearing. Just wanted to bring that up and do more research if that pertains to you. The other individual that is in the spotlight today is Nick Carter. So Nick Carter is someone who I think is quite a bright young mind. He had gotten into Bitcoin and started really becoming quite a public figure. I would say, when was it? About 2018. And he is a venture capitalist who began doing a lot of interviews, especially with the mainstream, showing up at conferences And I thought he was well worried and thought a lot about the space quite objectively. But he had changed his name on Twitter today to nickcarter.eth, upsetting the maximalist, the Bitcoin maximalist, quite a lot, who thought, I guess, that he was a Bitcoin maximalist. He did write out and that is Nick Carter, did write out a blog post to set the record straight. So I'll go ahead and share some of that. So yesterday, I was a subject of controversy on Bitcoin Twitter over my firm Castle Island's investment in Dynamic, a wallet-based sign-on company. So Dynamic is trying to make it so basically you can log into different websites, just like you might log into different DeFi products with your MetaMask or your Coinbase wallet. They basically want to take all these different wallets and allow you the option to sign in with them at different sites, which is obviously something very interesting, being able to sign in like that, and just a hallmark really of Web 3.0. You can see why his his firm Castle Island might want to invest in Dynamic. So this was quite surprising to me that they had become a controversy, he says. I figured that people knew what it was that I did for a living. There is nothing on the face of it that's particularly objectionable about this investment. And I'm not hawking a token. I'm announcing that we participated in a private VC round of funding. I'm going to clear things up here because most of the people piling on were deeply confused about me, my firm, and what I do. And yes, I'm including some choice words for the self-described Bitcoin maximalists. Those lovely maxis. You asked for it. You got it. I'm going to say this up front. If any of the Bitcoiners attacking me had invested even 30 seconds in looking at my firm's website or any of the papers I've written, my personal website, or any of the content that I've created over the last 5 years, let alone the 330 episodes of my podcast, they'd know that I don't exclusively focus on Bitcoin stuff. In my content, I focus a lot on Bitcoin, but even then, not exclusively so. So everyone piling on, every single one is contrasting the real me with the fictional, contrived version of me that they made up in their heads. I am not a Bitcoin maximalist. I have never been one, and I will never be one. So you can abandon that delusion right now. As I said on Twitter, I don't need these people's approval. My business does not depend. I love this maxi drama. I mean, it gives us something to talk about. It takes away some of the lightness of the financial fear, the mongering that's going on. We gotta admit. I've never met a serious entrepreneur that imposes a toxic maxi purity tests on venture capitalists. And if I did, I'd happily direct them to a Bitcoin-focused VC. I've never met an LP that does that either. Historically, those LPs that cared about my views have actually worried that I'm too Bitcoin focused. I don't monetize any of my content beyond a couple of ads for the podcast here and there, so I'm not reliant on an audience for everything. I'm not beholden to the Bitcoin Maxi tribe in any way. I don't owe them anything. And I don't care about being invited to Bitcoin-only conferences or going to tedious beefsteak dinners. Yeah, he was at the Bitcoin-only conference back in April, which I attended, and he did speak at that. So I guess he doesn't want to be speaking at them anymore, or he doesn't care for the invitation, but hopes to speak. I don't know. And yeah, eating beefsteak dinners and laser eyes is a huge part of the Bitcoin Maxi culture, which is not Bitcoin holders, but just the Bitcoin Maxi culture, which I guess now is on Twitter. People are confused because they wrongly believed I was some kind of full-time professional Bitcoiner, and more than that, a Bitcoin maximalist. I'm not. I've never described myself that way. I've always hated the term. Find an instance where I refer to myself that way. As you should know by now, I'm not Bitcoin's self-appointed Secretary of Energy, because he's done a lot of speaking in particular to mining and energy surrounding Bitcoin, or the head of communications. I'm a venture capitalist. I raise money from private individuals and institutions, and I invest in startups. I do Bitcoin content on the side because I enjoy it and feel it's important to do what I can to educate. It's purely mission-driven. My Bitcoin content does not have that much to do with my firm. Mostly what my firm invests in is in early stage equity and financial infrastructure startups. Most of these companies build on many blockchains. So then he gets into all sorts of other things. Dynamic, which doesn't have a token. Some were thinking that he was shilling now some shitcoin, and that was why they were going to start shitting on one of their own, one of the Bitcoin maxis. I've seen so many Bitcoin maximalists move away from this cult mentality in just the last year. Some of the brightest minds, some are actually saying that that their last brightest mind in the Bitcoin maxi culture has finally left. I mean, we've lost Trace Mayer. Robert Breedlove doesn't even associate with them. There are still those who exist and will knock even Nick Carter, like Jimmy Song, who also was on the show before, who was talking about all the sorts of logical fallacies that existed in all of this, and how stupid Nick Carter is. Let's go ahead. Anyway, so he goes on to talk about Castle Island, his fund, Bitcoin maximalism, which I'm sure you know a lot, but we'll finish up with just this section here, which I think is entertaining, on the Twitter mob, because this is something that does happen in this space, and I've seen it happen to me. I've seen it happen to people I've considered friends in this space as well. Getting piled on, I mean, Roger Ver, great example of someone who this has happened to. Getting piled on absolutely sucks, especially when it's by industry colleagues you've known for 5+ years and have always acted pleasantly towards you. I'll survive, but I am really mostly disappointed by the people whom I've known for a long time while turning on me for a drop of clout, trying to get those followers and look cool and those likes. I don't need to name names. You know who you are. I've done plenty of their shows and podcasts and had lunch with them, spoken at their conferences. I suppose the self-righteous rush of trampling on someone who strays from the orthodoxy is just too appealing. Yeah, there's not much else to talk about. I'm sorry, Nick. It's bad timing for you. I've seen some honestly disgusting attacks. I can handle a lot, but attacking my family is beyond the pale. Yeah, that's never warranted. Some of you are targeting my dad because he works at the World Bank, the evil World Bank, who is intent on dominating the world. One of the entities. I don't see what that has to do with anything, but to be clear, he likes Bitcoin. Thanks to my relative proximity to the bank, I've had the opportunity. Oh my God, it's so elitist in a way. But I've had the opportunity to share my views with them on Bitcoin and hopefully win hearts and minds. The bank has written some good stuff on the topic. Of the two Bretton Woods organizations, this was kind of restructuring away from having really gold backing the US dollar to nothing. That was the Bretton Woods agreement. A lot more on the subject that you'll find on YouTube and write-ups. So of the two Bretton Woods organizations, the World Bank and the IMF, the International Monetary Fund, the bank is definitely more open to Bitcoin. The IMF seems to be openly hostile. But regardless, what my dad does for a living is completely immaterial. But if you have a problem with what I do, your quarrel is with me. Come at me. Most of the people attacking me are confused about non-Bitcoin investments because they mistakenly thought I was a Toxie Maxi and know nothing of my work, views, podcasts, or fun. Maybe they did think I was a steak-eating Toxie Maxi, but do you eat steak, Nick? But do you even eat steak? Do you lift, bro? Who believes every financial asset other than Bitcoin was a scam. That's part of the credo. Call it a scam. Don't even research it. Just call it a straight up scam. Who cares who it's hurting? Who cares? It's not decentralized. It's not going to survive. It is a scam. I can see how you would get whiplash from that. Truth is, that's never been the case. I've never been a maximalist. I hate the term. I've never described myself that way, and I've always been open-minded. The same open-mindedness that brought me to Bitcoin a decade ago has served me well, and I'm not abandoning it anytime soon. So where to go from here? It's clear that there's an awful sickness pervading the Bitcoin space. We've known this forever, right? It's just that we're hearing another person remind us. Most Bitcoiners are normal, good people. Yeah, for the vast majority of them, there's no lifestyle associated with owning Bitcoin, as it should be. But there's a subset of people, a small, flailing, shrinking group who are mostly new to Bitcoin. That doesn't make sense. If they're new, well, I guess the older people are leaving is what he's trying to imply here, and that the newbies comprise the majority of those who are the Toxie Maxis. But yeah, it tends to come, I suppose, from those who don't really take the time to read very much and instead prefer to talk about what others have to say, I suppose. So a small, flailing, shrinking group, these Toxie Maxis, who are mostly new to Bitcoin, made Bitcoin their entire personality and became completely emotionally invested in it. They are spoon-fed on a diet of the same half-dozen thinkers and suffer from an ideological monoculture. They cannot extricate themselves from their lifestyle/investment. And so when anyone in the tribe or adjacent says anything that remotely contradicts their established dogma, which is inconsistent, morally confused, and indefensible anyway, they go on the attack. Now that they've lost now that they've all lost money and treasured ideas like we never draw down below previous cycle highs and the halvening / stock to flow are discredited, they feel deep within them the intellectual poverty of their thesis, so they lash out. Everyone in the Bitcoin and crypto industry knows what I'm talking about. The moral basis of these people is cartoonish. It's something that might appeal to a toddler. It's a dreadful binary. Every financial asset other than Bitcoin is a scam. Every blockchain other than Bitcoin is a scam and doomed to fail, even if they are objectively thriving and charging more for block space than Bitcoin. If anything interesting is built anywhere other than Bitcoin, it will inevitably return to Bitcoin, even if this has been false for the last 10 years. Investing your time or effort anywhere other than Bitcoin is misallocation, malinvestment, grifting, or a scam. I'm cringing even typing these words out. I'm genuinely embarrassed to be associated with these people. Ultimately, Bitcoin is not a lifestyle. Bitcoin is not a steak dinner. Bitcoin is not memes, and it's not laser eyes. Bitcoin is to everybody, but to some people it is, though. I mean, come on, Nick. Bitcoin is a profoundly useful tool. It is impregnated with some ideology, but is not the ideology that these people profess. The core Bitcoin values have to do with property rights, individual human dignity, self-determination, privacy, autonomy, and monetary predictability. Bitcoin attracts me for that reason, and I'll keep supporting it with all the resources available to me, regardless of how anyone describes me. I am not being sacrificed, and I'm not rage quitting. Oh man, they're probably having a blast on Twitter, these Bitcoin maximalists right now, as we speak. I've been here much longer than virtually all of my critics, and I am certain I will outlast them. Okay, I can also pretty much guarantee you I will continue to be far more impactful than them. Oh man. Their ideology is extremely brittle and grows more strained by the day. The testable tenets of Bitcoin maximalism, as I interpret it, are getting bleaker all the time. The S2F model is discredited. The halvening is moronic. I mean, that hasn't been disproven yet. Come on, Mr. Carter. World Bank, man. The sidechain thesis did not happen. Liquid did not succeed. It's succeeded for some people who profit off of it. Come on, man. It's working for some and not for all. That's the very basis of all markets. Well, not all markets. I think there can be winners on both sides of a trade. Lightning is interesting, but not everything. Imagine he had said this at the Bitcoin conference. How funny that would have been. Bitcoin is not the reserve currency of anything, not even the crypto industry. Elsewhere, smart contract stuff is interesting and worthwhile. This is what Jimmy Song had issues with, and I'm sure many others. And they really dislike this paragraph as we reach the end of this article. So everywhere else, smart contract stuff is interesting and worthwhile. Rollups and other interesting L2 models are gathering steam. I mean, you saw that with Arbitrum 1, although it might have been because of the promotion. It's still gathering steam, which is really cool. And we're seeing people use these to get cheaper token swaps, for example. DeFi is worthwhile and getting more sophisticated with the rise of under-collateralized lenders. Kind of risky. I can see why that sentence in particular most people would have an issue with. NFTs aren't going away and are getting more creative and useful. Non-monetary applications like decentralized social graphs or decentralized domain systems are gaining traction and genuinely matter. None of that is getting built on Bitcoin right now. The critical mass of developers, liquidity, and dev tooling is elsewhere. Ethereum isn't going to vanish, no matter how hard the maxis pray to Gensler. DeFi liquidity isn't going to dry up. What's actually going to happen is Bitcoin, the network and asset, will be decoupled, with Bitcoin settling on other transactional spaces. That's how Bitcoin and DeFi will be harmonized. The maximalists coming at me lack the perspective and the depth to even consider something like this. They are intellectually stunted. I am not pessimistic on Bitcoin. I'm just interested in the world as it actually is instead of the world of utopias and pleasant delusions. My case for Bitcoin has always been more robust and more resistant to shocks than the case these maxis make. But because theirs relies on fantasies like the stock to flow, I never fully bought the stock to flow either, just because it seemed like way too moon in the sky. And the world is quite complicated, as you can see. And we do have to look at the macro picture, not see everything from very myopically from the binoculars. We have to open up our perception as much as possible. My case for Bitcoin has always been more robust and resistant to shocks than the case these maxis make, because there relies on fantasies like the stock to flow, the inevitable collapse of all altcoins, or hyper-Bitcoinization. I'd be upset if I believed in those things too. I've always spurned I've always spurned externally imposed labels and now is no different. Call me whatever you want. You can keep your laser eyes and beefsteak dinners. I would like one, but I'm too poor. I'll be here doing my thing, he says. And then we'll finish up the show with just a nice quote here from Ryan Sean Adams, and of course, our quote of the day. So I think this is important because it's come out a lot, this talk about inflation versus debasement. Now we're trying to really create a definition that works for the crypto community and the finance community. Let's face it, not for everyone, because definitions are subjective. And they can be subjective because there can be many definitions for one word, which is why we went through the dictionary the other day on the show. But yeah, debasement is really the word that everyone seems to be using these days to talk about how the currency is being debased. More and more units are being printed, and that is causing inflation, which I think is a more specific way of what we're trying to get at when we talk about these things. So Ryan Sean Adams of the Bankless newsletter had this to say: ETH and BTC aren't an inflation hedge, they're a debasement hedge. And I think if we're, again, just trying to get more concise with our language, at least within our communities, this is probably the right way to go with the terminology, is use debasement nowadays. So that way you don't have to put up with the dumb talks. Well, inflation is price. It's not just printing more money supply, because haha, that's debasement. You're an idiot. So if you don't want to be called an idiot by another idiot, then just use the word debasement, I would say, or do whatever the heck you want to. It's a free world. So here is the wrapping up of the show with our quote of the day. I know times are tough for many folks, not just me. So I want to bring this one up by Dolly Parton. So the way I see it, if you want the rainbow, you got to put up with the rain. Absolutely. Tough times create tough men, as they say. Tough men create easy times. Easy time create easy men and women. And then easy men and women create easy times, which leads to... You guys have heard the whole thing before. I'll finish up there. So thank you so much for joining me. If you'd like to support the show, since we're still not yet monetized, although we're most of the way there, we need to reach 4,000 watch hours. We're only around 500 watch hours, and we need to reach 1,000 subscribers, and we're just over 700. Thank you for that. If you do want to support the show a little further, please continue becoming a producer for $5 or less, or whatever you want to, and you'll be added to the list at the end of the show. And I would be just so grateful for that. As we continue the show to try to serve you guys as best as we can, keep you on top of things. Hope you've enjoyed it. I hope you love peace, health, wealth, prosperity, and not just for you, for those around you that you care of. Take care, everyone. Much love, and we'll say it. Stay cryptic. Peace.